Hey guys, Wags with Ironman 4x4. Thanks for clicking in the video. Today, you and I are gonna work on getting this new Ironman 4x4 Raid insert bumper into your 4th gen Tacoma. I like to get my winch bumper unboxed and all my hardware and parts laid out so I know I have everything, and you can always double check it against the included bill of materials. Grab a 10 mil wrench. We're gonna unhook the battery from the negative side because when we mess around with our parking sensors and all that, we do not want this truck thrown a code. So if you unhook it now, then it won't know that we fooled around on it. Let's get our side fender flares off, and to do that, we need to remove these 10 mil bolts right here. There's one here, right up here, and right up here. You can go back and do the 4th one if you want, but with the 3rd one, I'll show you a trick how we can flex that out. We also have 2 of these little plastic clips, and you need a shorty flathead, or pull your wheel and tire off and you can use a long flathead. And then all these are gonna go back in. So I like to take a piece of cardboard or foam and kind of lay out where everything goes so I know that that bolt is going right back where it came out of. On these clips, you wanna turn it 90 or in the horizontal fashion. They come up and down. And then you can use a pry tool and get in behind here, and very carefully, you wanna pop the head of that completely out. Gosh, man, I'm never more nervous than when I'm messing with plastic Toyota fasteners. Okay, so these clips here are what hold this felt inner fender liner, and this stuff tears really easy, so we wanna be really careful, but we've gotta grab a couple tins underneath here. All right, and then we're gonna do the same thing over on the driver's side. I'll grab a pry tool, and carefully, I'm gonna work that little clip back. Now that's attached to this felt fender liner, and you don't wanna rip it out because it's clamped, it's actually attached. But if we carefully push this back, that separates the felt from the actual fender flare. And then we'll kind of work this back. Up here, we can that pulls down, and we can work this back. Now what I like to do is I'll take my felt and I'll roll it up a little bit, and I'll peel it back, and then you can kind of hang here up against the tire. Gives us access here. This clip right here, if you can see it, is very important. A lot of guys will just get on this fender flare and just yank the thing out, and you'll break this. Reach in behind, there's a little tooth. Push that tooth towards the back of the truck and gently pull, and that will come through. Now we can get our hands up behind here and give it a little tug-a-rooski, and that pulls back. Grab yourself a shop towel, something nice and soft like a microfiber. You wanna push this right back here because we're not gonna take the whole fender flare off. I just wanna keep it pushed away from the bodywork. Grab yourself a Phillips. I think this is actually a number 1, it's a smaller one. And we're gonna go right here. And I think this is the last fastener we have that's holding the front right side of our bumper plastic in. Now we should be able to pop it out. But tuck this away on your foam or your cardboard, or remember exactly where this goes. Honestly, the other thing you can do, take photos as you go, because if you forget, it's right on your phone, flip back, you have it. Now we're gonna jump to the other side, do the same thing. All right, we put the truck up in the air a little bit just so we can show you what you need to pull on the underside to get the front plastic OEM bumper skin off. There's gonna be a 10 mil here, 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 and then one over here. So we'll pull those off first. Oh, somebody put that one in. That guy's having a rough day at the factory. All right, just to make installation of the bumper easier, we're gonna pull these 4 12 mil bolts off for the OEM little splash plate right here. Since we've already got the truck in the air, we're gonna pull these OEM lash down points off. So grab a 17 millimeter socket and we'll zip these guys out. Same thing over here on the other side. Now we gotta pop all these little Toyota OEM like push button clips off to get this radiator top shroud off. So you can use a tool or you can use the tin that God gave you. You just push down, get underneath, and pop them up. Now hang on to all these because you don't want to break them and you definitely don't want to lose them. But I like to take them out individually as I go. In the past, I've just popped all of them and then tried to pull it all up at once. And sure enough, it'll hook and then it'll kick back and all of them will go flying all over your engine bay and you'll never find them again. So we'll take that one out. These ones are kind of sunken, countersunk in this little hole. Get this one out too. Now this one, if you can't get in there with a tool, this is the one where if you put your finger on it and then just push the whole thing up, then it won't go flying on you. So I'm gonna take this out. I'm gonna set it back here. I'm gonna set all my clips right there so they don't go anywhere. They should be okay. Now we gotta get this part out. This is part of the intake. Do this one, this one, this one, and this one. And then this just pops up from your front of your air box. We'll set this back over here. We're not gonna lose it. We'll put those little pop clips right back in there. Awesome, now we have access to the top. We wanna unhook our main wire harnesses. We have one here and one here. And then we will undo these 4 10s. You got a 10 mil here, here, and here. I guess that's 3, not 4, isn't it? So press down on the back side of this connector, and then you kind of wanna, I actually push first, and then I pull just to loosen it up. That seems to work pretty good. And then this one underneath, you kind of gotta do it a little blind, but it's basically the same thing upside down. See right there? So I like to squeeze, push, and then pull our front parking sensors, the front radar, and I think if this had a front camera, it would also all be unhooked along with the fog lights. These tins are okay to break loose and undo with a power ratchet or a power tool, but I would not use a power tool when we go to put them back because there's just a thin metal crush ring in this plastic housing, and I've seen it break a lot. There's 1, 2, and 3. All right, we're gonna undo the sides of the bumper skin here. So I'm just gonna reach in up behind here. Once it starts to pull away, you can get your fingers in there, pop that away. I did the same thing on the other side, and now that that's nice and loose, I'm gonna depress these 3 clips right here. Then the bottom of the bumper will start to pull away. And those you just push up on the tab and keep some forward pressure, and they'll pop out. Okay, cool. So see, the bottom of it's pretty much undone. All right, we're almost ready for liftoff here. I just wanted to show you, Toyota puts a little locating pin in this bracket. That's so the whole thing just doesn't come falling off after you take the bolts out. So what you wanna do is just pry up and over like that, do it here and here, and now everything's loose and it should come out. Before you do this, have a clean table with like a blanket on it or a clean piece of cardboard or like a painter's rack set up, because once we pull this off, we've got to find some place to set it down. All right, we'll go ahead and pull this bad boy off. And if it doesn't go, then something's hooked up, so just take your time. You don't want to use too much violence of action, but sometimes things stick. Awesome, it's not heavy. I just get nervous because I don't want to scratch it because it's so nice. All right, we got more crud on this that we need to take off. So this little plastic piece here, it's just got some clips. This one's got a clip here, and you push up on. Okay, that's out there. And then you just keep working these clips. I'm being real nice and professional, but you can literally just rip this off, just go in the garbage. I don't think anybody on Marketplace is gonna wanna buy this. All right, now we gotta get this OEM aluminum crash bar off. Don't mess with any of these fasteners out here. We're gonna take these 17s off right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we've got a few on the bottom. I'll do the top, we'll raise the truck. I'll show you how to get the ones off on the bottom. Grab yourself a 17 millimeter socket or wrench, and we'll zip these top ones out. All right, we're gonna set these aside and save them for later. All right, now we grab these 17s down here. All right, now there's a hook built in, so this isn't gonna fall off, so you can pull the hardware out and not worry about it. See, these are the pins that kind of hold that in place for you. So this is out, we'll set it aside. Let's get this plastic shroud under the radiator removed. We don't want it in our way, so we've got 3 clips here, 1, 2, and 3. 3 on this other side, inside of the frame horns, and then we've got 3 down here on the radiator cross support, 1, 2, and 3. All right, that side's done. I'll get this side. That side's done. Now we'll get the middle here. 3 on the bottom, 1, 2, and 3rd. All right, those clips are out. Now I save these things. These are like freaking gold in the Toyota world, so put them in your little pocket, save it for later when you break something. And this bottom part here just kind of pulls up and out. So if you're standing here at your frame horn and look on the outside of your frame rail, you have 1, 2, and 3 of these plastic caps. That is round, indicated by its roundness. This one is more rectangular, indicated by its rectangularness. We need to remove this one, this one, this one, and then on the inside, we have the same caps. Use a pry tool to get these out. And you can throw these ones away, or you can save them because I don't know, maybe you want to put them back on your frame somewhere, or maybe you're building a go-kart. Want to use it for that. I like to use a 1/2-inch extension and push it through, and then you can see through the front of your frame horn here. That out. Do the same thing on the other frame rail. All right, grab your bolt plate, and we're gonna take all the hardware off of it, and we're gonna feed it through so that these bolts come out here and here. So you can hold on to this little sparkler stick. It's kind of a tight fit. Feed it through and then tilt it up. And then you want it to try to hang there as best you can. Now we're gonna grab our recovery point. It's this guy right here. Hold that sparkler stick, and we're gonna feed right over like that. And you should be able to let it hang, and it kind of binds up on itself. Then we'll run our big flat washers like that. We got a split washer or spring washer over them, and then these nuts. And now nothing's gonna fall apart on us. Now that I've got that there, I am gonna grab some wire cutters, and I'm gonna push on this sparkler stick. I push it out, put a 90 in it, grab the end, bring it back, squeeze tight, and push it in and up and out of the way. The reason why I don't cut it is because if I ever wanna take something off, I still have access to this, so I can take it off, do what I need to do in my truck, put it back on. Grab this bracket next. It says HR for handwrite, or if you tilt it this way, it says RH for right-hand side. So you're gonna take this, and on the inside of your frame rail here, I'm gonna push that wire up and out of the way. We're gonna feed that crush tube through just like that. Now, the other trick too is once you have it here, you can just grab one of your OEM bolts and you can bite a couple threads and that'll hold it in place. Then you have this long bolt, that's the through bolt. We'll pop the nut off, take the washer stack off. I always go flat washer up against the bolt head side. We're gonna feed that through the crush tube, and on the outside of the frame rail here, we'll push up on that. I'm gonna put the flat washer on and then put the nut on. I'm gonna leave the split washer off because when we go to tighten all this down, everything's gonna suck down nice and tight. Then we can take the nut back off, throw the split washer on. If you run back over to where your table is, where all your hardware is laid out, we have 2 of these 45 millimeter tall bolts. You measure from the bottom of the head all the way to the top of the threaded shank, 45 mil. You also have 2 50 mil. We're gonna use these 45s. I pulled the washer stack off. We're going to put a flat washer on it like this. So you got that. And then we're gonna feed this through. There's a hole right here inside your frame rail. You go through the front of the frame horn. I'm gonna hold the top of this bolt, and we're gonna drop this bolt through the hole on the bottom of this recovery point. There it goes, just like that. Now we can put flat washer, split washer, and nut on this bolt. So you can kind of pull on the recovery point to keep that bolt in bind, and then we can spin that on. Oh, don't forget to take this out. That was just temporary. Okay, remember that lash down hook that we took off earlier, the OEM one, and those 2 OEM bolts? We're gonna go back for those. These are gonna go right through the bottom slots on the recovery point. We'll get these finger tight, and then we're gonna grab a 17, and we're gonna tighten these up first. That'll pull or push the recovery point up. Then we can tighten this bolt here, then we can get the bolts on the side. All right, so I've got a 17 on an impact. I'm gonna pull in this way, and we'll go ahead and tighten it up. And I'll just go a little bit at a time on each side. All right, I'm gonna take an open-end 19 for the bolt head inside the frame rail and a 19mm socket. And I've got that tightened. A couple things I'm checking for is I want it tight, but I don't want that split washer to open up. A split washer doesn't work if you tighten it down so much it blows apart. All right, grab a 19, we're gonna tighten this down. You don't need a wrench because remember this was on that bolt plate. So we're just gonna snug it down. You can see you've got quite a air gap here, so this is all gonna suck down up against that frame rail. Don't tighten this one down yet. We need to hang the winch tray first, then we can attack this one, but we wanna leave that bracket loose in the back on the inside. So to this point, do the same thing on the other side, then we can get that winch tray hung. All right, if you run back to your hardware table, there was 2 sets of these, 2 nuts, 2 split washers, 2 flat washers. Grab those, have 1 set in your hand ready to go. We're then gonna grab the winch tray, we're gonna lift it up, we're gonna hang it over these positions right here. Then we'll quickly throw the washer, split washer, and nut on there just to hold it in place for us. And that goes there, this goes there. Okay, you kind of push from the middle. This thing's not gonna go anywhere. I'll throw my washers on. I'll throw a nut on. And once we catch a few threads, then even if this gets bumped, it can't fall off. And we'll go washer, split, and nut. All right, grab these 2 plates that have the 3 holes in them. What it is like a tri-washer. And then you've got 6 of these bolts with split washers. Grab those. We'll do 3 and 3 on each side. So I just start with 1, and we're gonna land that bolt right back in there. Now, you've got the winch tray, then you've got the actual frame rail of the truck, and then you've got that bracket in the back. That bracket, it has those welded, threaded nuts on it. So that's why we left this bolt here loose so we can move that bracket. So with my right hand, I'm kind of moving that bracket around until I find the threads. Now, if you're having a hard time getting everything to line up, you probably over tightened something. So kind of go back and loosen things up and you'll get the adjustment that you need. Now we're gonna grab that 50mm long M12 and this middle location here. Feed it through with a flat washer on the front. We'll put a flat washer on the back, a split washer, and the nut. I'm gonna spin it down, just kind of finger tight. I'll do the same thing on the other side, but before we go over there, grab 2 of those original OEM bolts that came off of the crush bumper, and we're gonna thread those right here and here. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Now I'm gonna tighten up these lower OEMs. They're also 17s. Before we tighten down these 3 bolts with that big tri-washer plate, don't forget we want to make sure we secure the bracket here on this front recovery point. So I'm going to put a 19 on the bolt head, a 19 here, and we'll get it locked down. And do the same thing on the other side. Now we'll get these guys locked down, they're a 19. And same thing on the other side. We'll get this center bolt right here. It's a 19 bolt and a 19 nut. There we go. Same thing over here on this side. This is the universal solenoid control box mount for the Ironman 4x4 Frontier winch or the Monster winch. It'll work for both. We're just trying to give you guys an option so that you can mount your control box here and get to it in an easy fashion. So you need this bracket, you need this hardware here. We gave you a set of 3. You don't really need the extra one, just in case you lose it, you have it. And then this guy right here. I think I'm gonna run mine probably up a little bit higher, just like that on those 2 locations. So once I know where I wanna go, I'll take my pan head hex bolts, and these are a number 4 Allen in the front. And then you got these 10mm nuts. We will spin those down on the back side like so. So get that put together, and then I'll show you how to bolt it on there to the winch tray. Okay, I'm gonna hold the back of that 10. I'll tighten the front. So you're gonna line this hole with the threaded welded nut on this slot on the top. And if I can catch a thread, there we go. Grab a number 4. Now you may not want to lock this all down in place right now because we still need to fit the control box. So what I'm going to do is we are ready to go grab our Ironman 4x4 Frontier winch. We're going to put a 12K, one of the big boys, on here. We'll get that all fit in this location and we'll get that mocked up and go from there. All right, so we got our Ironman 4x4 Frontier winch mocked up. As I mentioned before, our universal bracket has a lot of different options to mount this solenoid control box. Even if you're not using an Ironman brand winch, you can still drill holes and use this plate to get your solenoid put where you'll be able to access it nice and easy. Couple things to check for. Make sure you have clearance back here on your clutch handle that you can engage it and disengage it when you go to put it into free spool, and make sure nothing's touching on your wires here. Now I'm gonna do a little more tidying up with some zip ties and get that looking nice, but we're pretty much ready to jump back and start working on our bumper skin and the cut. All right, we've got our OEM bumper skin off the truck. There's a couple components we need to get out of the way so we can make our cut for our Ironman front bumper shell. First, grab a 10 mil socket. We're gonna pull 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these to get this louver system out of the way. We'll unhook the wire harness here. We're just gonna unplug it, set it to the side. It'll give us access to the rest of the components and the wire harness that we need to pop out. I'm gonna unhook this connector right there. Sweet, and we'll go set this out of the way. Let's start unhooking our wire harness. So I've got a little pry tool here, and I am gonna start popping out all of this wiring because we're gonna pull this black insert piece out. We'll use our Phillips screw gun, unzip all that, but we'll start here, get the electronics out of the way. Fog lights, those need to come out. So we'll undo that. We've got to get our outside thermometer temp sensor out. Get under here. This one's coming out. This fog light wire out. Unhook our fog light. It's there. I'm going to unhook our radar just to give us room. So now I just need to get the parking sensor out. You press on that little tab there. There we go. Cool. So that's the outside one. There we go. Now grab yourself a Phillips, and we're gonna undo all these little screws so that we can start to separate some of these plastic panels. So we're gonna start here at the bottom with all these little clips. So you just press them like that, and they all kind of have to come out at the same time. And if you want to kind of save your progress, you can always jam one of these tools in there just to kind of hold your progress. That'll keep it from snapping back into place. Now we need to pop all these out of the way. Same kind of thing. I like to put a little body panel tool in there just to give us the tension that we need to start to get these things to pop and separate out. Cool. Now, there's clips on this back side. All right, now that we've got this piece off, our parking sensors are still in it right there. So what I want to do is I'm going to put an R for right and an I for inside. And here I'm going to do an L and an I. Now you can put whatever marks you want, but just as long as you know what the position is. I know these are inside sensors. This is on the right, that's on the left. Now I'll show you how to pop them out. I like to rock the sensor towards the back. I'm kind of twisting. I'll pop this front little ear, that little tab right there. Then I'll reach back, pop the back one. They come right out. So I've got that. I'll do the same thing here. There you go. One thing to note is on these Toyota parking sensors, I think all new Toyotas are this way. There is a silicone ring that goes on the outside. Do not lose that. That's an important piece that you want to make sure you keep on that parking sensor. That way we have a nice fit when we plug it in to the Ironman bumper. All right, let's get these fog lights removed. We've got a Phillips head screw that's all the way down in there. It's kind of hard to see, and you're gonna have to fit your screwdriver down at an angle. All right, that one is clear. We'll get this other side. All right, so I've got my little air saw here. You can use whatever cutting tool of choice that you might have access to cut through plastic. But the best way I like to do this is I'm gonna cut some of these supports out just to clear out an area. Then we can get a little more precise with our cut. So follow along, won't you? Surgical. I'm gonna kind of pry this apart and I'm gonna start upside down. Then I know I'm not gonna cut through that plastic. All right, now that we're getting a little bit closer to doing our very fine-tuned cut, I'll show you how here on this outer edge where we're gonna go. So right here at the top, this is on the, I guess it'd be the front left side, driver's side. I'm gonna start on the inside crease down in this channel. We're gonna go right down here, and I'm basically just gonna follow that inside channel all the way down and out. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Now when you're making this cut up here at the top, you still have this black plastic back here that's structural, and we don't want to cut that away yet. So if you have a tool where you can be a little more precise, watch your depth. You don't want to go too deep. All right, now that blade's going to heat up that plastic and melt it a little bit. So you might need to wiggle it back and forth and crack it away. And that looks pretty rough, but we can clean all this up. Plus, the Ironman bumper shell is gonna cover all that rough cut, so you're never gonna see that. Cutting bumper plastics is like getting a haircut. If you're nervous about doing it and it's your first time, go really slow. We don't have to make this cut right now. If you want to, you can cut some of this out of the way. You can use a heavy-duty pair of like shop shears or tin snips. I mean, you can just take little sections at a time that you're comfortable with. All right, now we're ready to make the cut on this structural black plastic piece behind it. We've been really careful to not cut away parts of the structure that we are gonna want for reinforcement to make sure that we keep as much strength in this plastic bumper that we can maintain. The cut's done. I know there's a lot of little like complex compounding angles that you have to go through, but the cut itself is pretty simple. The key points you want to take away are this. These mounting lugs here, 1, 2, and 3, those are for that radiator grill that we have. These are the supports, so you can't cut those away or you're going to lose all that stability. Also, these clips here, 1, 2, and 3, these are what plug into that bracket that's bolted in front of our radiator that sweeps down. Don't cut those away or you'll lose that stability. Everything else out here, you know, we've cut out kind of the back of the fog light buckets so that our Ironman lights can fit. Everything else pretty straightforward, and that bumper shell is gonna cover all that up. Now we can get our wire harness plugged back in. Earlier we had removed the lower half so that it was safely out of the way while we made our cut. But we're done with that. So I like to start on one side. We're gonna take our outer parking sensor for that would be the front right of the truck, passenger side. Clip that in, and then your little Christmas tree plugs, you can go ahead and get those tucked back into place. Okay, a couple options for your fog lights. This is your factory fog light plug here. You can either cut this off and wire in the pigtail that goes to a 2-pin Deutsch plug for the Ironman 7-inch little light bars that are gonna go here. That way you can use it on your factory fog switch. Now, if you're running, you know, like a controller, like a aux beam or a switch pro, you don't have to do this. You can wire them into whatever signal or switch you want. So it's just depending on how you want to do it. But if you were going to go into your factory, that's how you would do it right there. So we'll leave this there. Now, as we come across, the next plug connector here is going to be our inner parking sensor. Ironman supplied you with an extension, which makes it nice so that we're not real tight on pulling on any of these wires. So I'm going to hang that right down here like this, because we're gonna install our parking sensors and all of our lights and light bars into that bumper shell so that when we go to hang it, everything will be set, and then we can just plug our wires in and then we can zip tie it up when we're all done. Makes it really nice for an easy install. Working our way further across, we've gotta make sure we plug back in this big connector for our radar, the front facing radar. We also have our outside temperature sensor, thermometer goes right there. We've got our next parking sensor. So we'll plug in the extension, let that hang. Then we're gonna have factory fog light. We will plug that in, and then we'll finish up over here on our front left parking sensor. Cool, so that is all into place. I am gonna grab some zip ties and clean this up, and then we'll put our radiator louver grill system right back over the top. All right, I zipped up some of this wire harness here just so it's nice and tight, not gonna shake all around. I grabbed that radiator grill louver system. One thing I'll show you here, these little metal threaded mount deals, they pop out really easy. So make sure you've got all of them set in there. The other thing too is the reason why you can only torque these things down to like 2 or 3 foot-pounds is because that square, that metal square, it'll twist in that plastic housing. So you have to go so light, because if you crack that housing, you're gonna be screwed. These 3 at the top. And before I forget, I'm gonna plug this wire harness back in. It goes here on the bottom one. You've got 1, 2, it's this bottom one, the third one. Cool, that's hooked up. I'm gonna grab a 10 mil. All right, before I move on, that's all it takes. Center and tight. This location has those little locating pins, so it's gonna line up tight. I mean, yeah, that's like literally 2 pounds. Cool. One tip on these parking sensor extensions for the middle parking sensor locations, I'm gonna run this parking sensor wire actually out through the side. Now there's a soft rubber shroud on the outside of this. I can just run it right underneath. We have plenty of room to land that center parking sensor location, and it'll look a lot cleaner. Okay, I'm gonna flip the bumper shell upside down. That way you can see it a little bit better. But on this flip-up license plate bracket, it comes in 2 pieces when you get it out of the kit. So grab those 4s. They're a button head Allen. It's a number 4 hex, and then a 10 mil nylock. You use that plastic nylon spacer, goes in between them. That way, when you tighten it down, you can still flip it up and down, but it keeps it nice and tight. So if you flip your license plate up, it'll stay up. You flip it down, it'll stay down. The wind won't move it around. Once you get that put together, I'll show you how to get it onto the bumper shell. So again, I'm working upside down so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So that goes on first, then grab your winch fairlead, have that handy, and the hardware. So we're gonna drop down these big button head hex bolts like that. No washers, they just lay flat right in that aluminum housing. That just tucks down in there. Now I'll grab our flat washers, our split washers, and these black nuts. I put my finger on this side, and then from the back side, then it holds it all in place. I'll put my flat washer, split washer, and I'll just spin this nut on by hand, and I'll do the same thing on this side. All right, grab yourself a number 8 Allen key. I'll get a 19 millimeter socket for the nut on the back, and we'll lock it down. All right, we're gonna work on our center light bar. Grab your brackets out of the hardware kit. We're gonna do this number 5 Allen bolt with a split washer. That just goes right on the side like that. The brackets should be rear sweeping like that. We'll get that locked down. Same thing on the other side. So now that we've got our light bar brackets put together, you can drop it down into place on top of the mounting brackets on the front of the bumper shell. You're gonna run the bolt down through the top. Now the brackets have these shoulders that are raised to hold it in place. If you have a washer, grab one. If not, I think you can use the nut without a washer, but I like to use a washer with this nylock. Grab a 13 and we'll just push on the bolt head so it holds into place with those shoulders, and we'll tighten this down. Now that bumper shell, when we mount it on the truck, we try to get the thing as level or on the vertical, straight up and down. After you get this mounted, you might reach up through these access holes and you can adjust the height of your light bar. I like to take my truck out at night, find a warehouse like a concrete wall in a parking lot, and then I'll back away a little bit, flip on my lights, and then I'll adjust and see where I am. All right, we got 2 of our Ironman 7-inch LED light bars here. One goes here, one goes there. I recommend grabbing some washers for these bottom mounts here. We'll throw the nylocks back on. These are 13s. Now these use the rear mount brackets for these little light bars here. And these are 10s and those are 13s. So I'm gonna start with getting my front to back depth set. And you can kind of see where the cutout is. These little light bars are bigger than the cutout, so it kind of has this cool Frenched in look to it. So once you have your depth set like that, I'll get those tightened down. All right, I think my elevation's good, so I'm gonna snug this up a little bit. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna do the same thing in that location. Let's get these parking sensors put into this bumper shell. So if you remember earlier, we marked them. RI meant right inside, LI meant left inside. The kit comes with these parking sensor mounting brackets, double-sided 3M sticky tape, and some adhesion promotion, because you always got to promote the adhesion. So we're going to start with this. I recommend using gloves. The stuff reeks. Try not to huff a bunch of this. I mean, I guess unless you're into that sort of thing, which you should not be. This whole little sponge thing is all sopping wet of this garbage. So wipe that on, and that'll give us some time. And then I like to grab these mounts right here. Let me get real nice and close. Let me get real comfy together. So this is the face side. So I actually like to wipe that down with promotion, adhesion promotion. There, that's been promoted. Give that just like 1 or 2 minutes to dry up a little bit. Okay, these little double-sided sticky gaskets, I peel off the white backing, and then carefully, I try not to touch the sticky side as best I can, but it's pretty tough. I go over the top like that, lay it down. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to be close. And then I take a knife or something flat. You could use a screwdriver, or you could go steal your mom's spatula, or you could whittle a flat stick in the woods. But I'm just pushing down and kind of wiping away because you want it nice and flat, but you definitely want it pushed down on that bad boy, just like that. So we'll set that aside. Let's do this one. So even that one, like, that didn't line up perfect, but because I'm using my knife to kind of get in there and flatten it all out, we're gonna be okay. That sticky gasket material's nice and soft. Take your knife or a razor blade or something, and we're gonna try to get to, don't cut yourself. I just wanna get under this orange, that orange film on the top, but you don't wanna peel up the gray gasket. So that's kind of what you're going for, like that. Pull that off. I'll do the same thing here. So left is going to be the left side of the truck, or driver's side. That is going to mount right in there like this. These plug into the sensor like that. So we're going to go vertical, up and down. Right in the middle. And then we'll just push, give it a lot of nice forward pressure. Cool, and that is not going anywhere. Same thing on the other side. Now, because we use the adhesion promoter and this really good double-sided like sticky gasket, if you do it this way and everything's clean and follow these directions, these things will not pop out. They are cemented in there. Okay, we'll let that set up. Now we can go back and grab our sensors. Earlier we talked about that silicone ring that goes on the outside. One thing I've seen is if you just jam these in to the housing, you can pinch that, and then when you look at it from the front, it won't look even. Also, be careful. These little wings here, they're pretty resilient, but if you go crazy, you can snap them off. I don't want you doing that. So just go ahead and push it in nice and even on both sides. And the goal is you're trying to land the barrel of this sensor in the front and not have it pinch. Another trick you can do to keep this little silicone gasket from pinching in the housing, you actually wipe it with WD-40. Put WD-40 on a little paper towel or a rag and just wipe right around that edge, and then they'll slide right in. Let's see, like that started to pinch, so back it out, wiggle it in, Perfect. All nice and flush. Okay, let's get this OEM bumper grill. Oh, I just realized I'm missing a clip, but that's okay. We're gonna hang this right now. So, key points, we wanna hang these mounts that we took off before. They have a little locating pin. So I like to start at the top. So I'm watching the top. Also, I've got those microfibers rolled up that are pushing the fender flares out because you don't want to scratch up your paint. Okay, there we go. That one's hanging. And then we'll go down here, and those 3 clips that just press in on this bracket we talked about earlier. So I'll make sure that's one set, that one's set, and that one already locked in. Cool. And just to show you, parking sensor extension right here, easy access, ready to roll. We've got our fog light already wired up. We can pop that in to the little 7-inch light bars at the top when we get that set. So this is looking pretty good. Now, just to make sure it doesn't fall off, we can come over here to the side, and this is gonna clip up over this black bracket. So kind of bend and stretch that in. And now this thing ain't going anywhere. I'll do the same thing on the other side. All right, I've got the bumper shell ready to go. I'm sitting on my little roller stool, which makes it a little bit nicer. We've got these nut plates here. This one with the little stick, that's gonna go right there on the outside of that flange. This one goes here. I'm gonna set them in my tool cart. Also, I've got my bolts ready to go, 3 and 3 for each side. Now, if you've got a winch, you want to go ahead and spool out a little bit of winch line, because as I go to fit this up, I'm gonna feed it through the fairlead there. I've got all my wires kind of tucked out of the way so nothing gets pinched. And then the name of the game is to try to work everything by holding the center of the bumper if you're doing it by yourself. Now, the front of the shell, that mount's gonna hook over the outside of that mount in there. So now that I'm here, I can kind of brace it with my shoulder, like that. I'll reach down, grab a bolt. I'm gonna fish. There we go. So I've got a bolt going through that bottom slot. Now there's a lot of adjustability, so make sure you wanna see what you're doing here. All right, so I've got the bottom and the middle section, bolts are through. I'm gonna switch over to the other side of the truck. That way we can kind of let it hang as it binds up on itself. All right, I'm gonna get this last bolt fitted up in here if I can. I think I'm getting close. Sweet, all right. So you should see these 3 bolts popped through. Everything's kind of in bind now. I'm gonna take my nut plate right here, and you can kind of come around with your left arm, and with your right hand, feed it through that access hole. And once you get that plate, try to hook up a few threads. All right, now that you've caught a few threads and the bolts are set up, it's not gonna fall out, so go do the other side, same thing. Just switch hands. Because we have our solenoid control box for the winch mounted in this location, it makes getting to these 3 bolts that bolt the bumper shell on a little tough. Now I have a flex head 19 ratcheting wrench, and that kind of works probably the best. You can probably get in there with a different wrench. I don't think you can get it with a socket, but just kind of a slow process. And we'll go ahead and start to suck that bottom one down. You don't want to go too tight because we still have to actually adjust the bumper. I'm going to switch up here to the top bolt. With my left hand, I'm feeding here through the back side of these plastics. I can kind of keep my hand on the wrench and the bolt just to make sure it's spinning in the right way. All right, we got the bumper shell on. We got the mounting bolts snugged down. I've kind of aligned it. You can see up here, this all matches the grill profile. It looks awesome. Now we got to get all the electronics hooked up. So if you look in here, you can see our parking sensor extension wire harness is right here. So you kind of want to line it up. The top part with the clip that you press on, that's going to be facing towards the back of the truck. Yeah, I can feel that parking sensor right here. And then there it goes, it clips right in. So that one's done. We've got our pigtails, these Deutsch connectors for this light bar here. They've all been wired. We actually went into the factory fog system for this truck. So we're gonna hook that up. Once that clicks in, we're gonna tuck them up and away, and then we can zip tie those so that they're secure, not flapping around. Moving over here, I fed our winch line through the fairlead, so we've got a little room there to work. You can see the flip up and down license plate bracket right there, so that's kind of cool. Same thing over here, parking sensor extension. That clicks right into there like that. Perfect. And this is for the other light bar right here. And then all that's left for us to do is wire up our main light bar. I'm gonna put this big Ironman soft shackle through here, and I'll secure it to the recovery point. And it just is a good reminder, I mean, it's kind of just my little pet peeve, but I see people do this. Don't put a steel hook on a nice, soft, powder-coated recovery point. You're just gonna scratch up, it'll rust. Plus, soft shackles are a lot safer. So now the last bolts you should have in your hardware setup are 4 of these guys. They say L on the top. These are pinning bolts, and they work like this. So if you look up here on your inside of the winch tray flange, there's little holes that are already cut in. Those are pilot holes. So once we get the bumper shell fit exactly how we want it, don't do it too soon. You know, I would even say you might want to go out, take a test drive, shake the truck down, look at it, because you might go, I kind of want to pull the bumper out a little bit, or I want to tilt it up, or I want to tilt it down. Make sure that you're done with your adjustment. When you're done with that adjustment, then go into these little guide holes for your pinning bolts, take a bit that's the same size, drill all the way through the other side of that bracket, then take this pinning bolt, just like this, and you'll bolt it right through. Now these will cut their own threads. That keeps everything nice and tight. So it's gonna take a lot of power to get these things to go all the way through, but they'll create their own threads as they go through, pop out the other side, run flat washer, split washer, and nut out here on that side. Why do we do that? Well, one, it's really, really nice because it basically saves the mounting location of your bumper to your truck. So if you ever have to go back and do some maintenance on it or pull the thing off, when you go to put it back on, you don't have to sit there and try to align it all perfectly. You just have to line up the pinning bolt locations, everything bolts exactly back into place. Also, it's a safety thing too. It increases the crush strength of this bumper if you get into an accident. So you definitely want the pinning bolts in there because if you do get in a wreck, these things they're made to break at a certain rate. It's all been tested. This is all crash tested. We do all that down in Australia. Super, super safe bumper. All right, flashback to the start of this video. You may have remembered I grabbed a piece of foam or told you to grab a piece of cardboard and lay out your hardware, but this is why I do it, because I am not smart enough to remember all of this. So every single fastener and hardware was put in its location on the truck. So these are the 3 top tins that go on the top. These were the 4 bottom ones. We're losing these because we removed all that. So those go bye-bye. And then everything else, we know exactly where it goes. Like this tin right here that's got a Phillips on it, that goes there. This one goes here. That one goes back in here. Then we've got that plastic clip. So now for our fender flares, getting that all buttoned back up, we do it in reverse. So we're gonna start at the top. I'm gonna grab this Phillips screw, and we'll get that put back up here on the skin. All right, so we're gonna put that Phillips screw, goes right in there. You kind of pull down with one hand on your fender to keep it out of the way. Awesome. Now we can pull our microfiber or whatever you were using to keep your paint nice. And we've got these clips right here, 1, 2, and 3. Definitely line them up, because if they're not lined up and you go play Hulk smash on it, you're gonna break everything or at least bend it up real bad. So you can see it from the back side as long as your felt fender liner's pulled back. So the top one clipped in, nice positive clip. Bottom's all clipped in, that is perfect. Fender flares all clipped back in. Now we can move to this inner fender liner, which is felt. And it's actually pretty delicate, so just treat it lovingly.
How do you know it's felt?
I felt it. So at the top, we want to peel all that back in, and you can see where it's going to line up. Now these plastic clips, those should have stayed on the felt. If they popped off, they probably tore the felt apart. So that's not good. they go behind this plastic ridge right here. And then it's actually that lip, this top lip that clips over just like that. That clips over. This piece of felt goes over like that. And then down here below, it's a little hard to see, but that goes over. This tooth of the felt tucks in like that. So I'm gonna do it out of order because I wanna get the felt thing put back in. So these go back in the horizontal position, flat. And once we push them in, we'll turn them vertical, or up and down for those of you that don't know what vertical means. All right. Yep, just like that. Feels good. Twist. That is where it needs to go. All right, we've got our fastener. We know it goes right here. I'm gonna pull the felt back and show you. This is a threaded metal clip that clips up and over the plastic. Sometimes these fall out when you're messing around with everything, so make sure that goes back where it needs to go. So this fits here. And again, no power tools on this part because it never goes right. There you go. Grab a 10, and I mean, it's like quarter turn, half turn, and that thing is tight. We'll grab our next one, and we're gonna work back to this location here. Okay, that all looks good. It's all sitting how it should. And, yeah, I mean, half turn. Cool. And this one too is just like, I'm gonna get it hand tight, and then just like a quarter turn. All right, last one, right up here. Sweet, this side's done. We'll go do the same thing on the other side. Before we get the truck on the ground, let's not forget we want to put our OEM little splash plate back up here. So I'm gonna grab a 12mm wrench. These are the last 3 bolts for the grill we got to put back in. These little factory 10mm bolts go right in here. Again, do not use power tools because you will break this plastic housing. So we'll just spin it down like that. Quarter to half turn at most. Work your way down. This one in the middle and one on the end. Cool. All right, bolts are in, so the top of the grill's hooked up. Let's not forget we got to plug in our wiring harnesses for the front of the truck. So this one right here is going to go down low, and you kind of really can't get these wrong because they're different connectors, but you want a good positive click as you push in. Then this one on the top, and you'll hear them click together. Cool, now we can get our plastics put on. Grab the air intake right here, and you'll see down in here, that's where it plugs in. It's got like a foam gasket around it. So you push that down, line up these holes here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, to get these to work, we depressed them all down. Just hold the top and push them back up. So they need to be like that. That way the little fingers kind of close. The other thing too is sometimes if these get bent open and you can't get them shut again, lay it down on the side and kind of roll it, and sometimes you can get all the fingers to roll into that location. Then you softly push down, and that top goes back to being level. So it's gonna look up like that. Click it into place, it'll look like that. I know it's a stupid detail, but I hate breaking these things because they're hard to find. Okay, those are in. Carefully take this because we put all these little clips in this cup, so awesome. And that goes over these little nubbins right there. And then we can just pop them all back into place. You might need to kind of push and pull on this plastic to get the holes to line up. Last 2 are in the front. Okay, now don't forget, if you've got a winch, you still got to get all that wiring done. On our monster winches and frontier winches, we also run a breather tube. So don't forget to run that breather tube to where you want. Higher the better. See, this one's fighting me a little bit, but I'm doing that little roll trick, and there it goes. Awesome, and we gotta hook up the negative terminal on our battery. Everything's plugged in, so the truck doesn't know we've been messing around with it. So when it wakes back up, it should be like, hey, everything's good. All right, you're gonna need a 10 mil wrench, and we'll hook that up, lock it down, tighten up that side of it. All right, let's get this hood shut and we'll check out the truck. Guys, the bumper's on the truck. This thing looks great. I love how the design language, it's all integrated. It definitely looks Toyota. You've got a ton of firepower with all these big lights out the front, and that 12,000 pound winch is gonna help keep you out of trouble. If you wanna know more about this, pick one up for yourself or get one for a friend, go to Ironman4x4America.com. We'll hook you up over there.